I think you are.
Yeah. But now you're going to mention guitarists I don't know, I bet. Nothing whatsoever to do with the band. I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew exactly how to go about doing it.
At 82, Jimmy Page has just stepped forward with a revelation that cuts straight to the heart of everything fans have quietly dreaded for decades. The architect of Led Zeppelin, the guitarist whose riffs reshaped rock and roll forever, the man who once seemed invincible behind layers of mystery and mastery, has finally spoken the words no one wanted to hear but everyone sensed were coming. He has lived a life few could imagine, building an empire from a single abandoned guitar in a suburban English home, rising through the shadows of session studios to command stadiums that shook the world. Yet at this advanced age, with his legacy cemented in platinum, gold, and cultural immortality, Jimmy Page has chosen to unburden himself of the one truth he guarded longer than any master tape or occult symbol. What he revealed is not a new album or a reunion tour. It is something far more personal, far more haunting. A confession about the invisible weight he carried through every triumph, every tragedy, and every silent year since the band dissolved. Once you hear it, the thunder of Whole Lotta Love, the majesty of Stairway to Heaven, and the raw power of every live explosion will echo differently in your mind. This is the story of how a quiet boy from Epsom became the defining force of rock, and why, at 82, he could no longer keep the fear buried. Jimmy Page entered the world on January 9, 1944, in the quiet London suburb of Heston, Middlesex, at a time when the air still carried the echoes of wartime sirens. His family soon moved to Epsom in Surrey, where the ordinary rhythms of post-war Britain shaped a boy who already felt the pull of something extraordinary. Music found him early, not through formal training or family tradition, but through an unclaimed acoustic guitar left behind in the new family home on Miles Road. No one came to claim it. No one explained its presence. 12-year-old James Patrick Page simply picked it up, strummed a few uncertain chords, and never put it down. That moment marked the beginning of a journey that would redefine popular music. He absorbed everything around him: skiffle records spinning on the family player, the raw energy of Lonnie Donegan, the electrifying precision of Scotty Moore on Elvis Presley's Sun Sessions, and the blistering blues of Elmore James and B.B. King. Formal lessons bored him quickly. He preferred to learn by ear, dissecting records in his bedroom until his fingers bled and his ears rang with possibility. By 13 he was appearing on BBC television with a skiffle group, performing lead belly covers and declaring, with charming teenage sincerity, that he might one day pursue biological research to cure cancer if music did not claim him first. School held little appeal once the guitar became his true classroom. Teachers confiscated the instrument during lessons, only to return it at the final bell. He left Uplands County Secondary School at 15 with 4 O-levels and an unshakable conviction that his future lay in sound. The path was not smooth. After brief stints touring with Neil Christian and the Crusaders, playing Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis covers across Britain's club circuit, Page's body rebelled. Glandular fever struck hard, forcing him off the road and into recovery at Sutton Art College. Even then, music refused to let go. He played interval sets at the Marquee Club on Oxford Street, sharing stages and late-night conversations with future legends like Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, and Ginger Baker. Word spread among London's producers. By 1963, at 19, he was the youngest in-demand session guitarist in the city, known in the studios as Little Jim, to distinguish him from Big Jim Sullivan. His hands appeared on dozens of hits that defined the British Invasion era: rhythm parts on The Who's I Can't Explain, acoustic 12-string on early Kinks tracks, subtle flourishes beneath John Barry's orchestrations for Shirley Bassey's Goldfinger, and uncredited contributions to recordings by Donovan, Joe Cocker, Tom Jones, and even an embryonic David Bowie. Industry estimates suggest he played on nearly 60% of UK top 10 singles between 1963 and 1965. The work was relentless: 3 sessions a day, 6 days a week. Yet it honed a versatility and studio intuition that would later become the secret weapon of Led Zeppelin. Page learned to read a room, anticipate a producer's needs, and deliver magic under pressure. But the anonymity gnawed at him. He was the invisible architect behind the hits everyone sang, yet his own name remained unknown to the public. Opportunity knocked in 1966 when he joined the Yardbirds, first sharing lead guitar duties with Jeff Beck in one of rock's most tantalizing what-if lineups, then assuming sole leadership after Beck's departure. The band's live sets grew increasingly experimental, stretching songs into improvisational journeys that foreshadowed Zeppelin's epic stage marathons. Page introduced the cello bow to his electric guitar, coaxing otherworldly drones and textures no one had heard in rock before. When the Yardbirds finally splintered in 1968, Page refused to let the name die. He retained the rights and set about assembling a new group with surgical precision. First came Robert Plant, a young Midlands singer Page discovered performing to a near-empty room in a teacher's training college. Then John Bonham, Plant's powerhouse drummer friend, whose thunderous style Page witnessed at a Tim Rose gig and instantly recognized as irreplaceable. John Paul Jones, a respected session bassist and arranger, completed the quartet after calling Page directly upon seeing a newspaper item about the new project. Their first rehearsal in a cramped basement beneath a Soho record shop in August 1968 produced an instant chemistry that felt almost supernatural. Manager Peter Grant, a formidable former wrestler and tour manager, secured them a deal with Atlantic Records and shrewdly altered the spelling from Led Zeppelin to Led Zeppelin to avoid mispronunciation by American DJs. By December, they were playing their first American dates. The machine was alive. What followed was a commercial and artistic ascension unlike anything rock had seen. 9 studio albums, 8 consecutive UK number ones, 6 US Billboard toppers, and worldwide sales estimated between 200 and 300 million records. Albums like Led Zeppelin 4, with its unnamed cover and mysterious runic symbols, sold over 37 million copies alone. Stairway to Heaven, never released as a single, became the most requested song on American rock radio throughout the 1970s. Swan Song Records, launched in 1974, gave the band complete creative and financial autonomy. Touring deals that granted them 90% of gate receipts rewrote industry power dynamics. Page designed every element: guitar tones that blended ancient blues with futuristic distortion, album artwork steeped in symbolism, even the vinyl etchings pressed into the records. He was not merely a guitarist. He was the visionary producer, the conceptual artist, the businessman who ensured Led Zeppelin operated as a self-contained empire. Yet success exacted a terrible toll. In 1977, Robert Plant's 5-year-old son Carrick died suddenly while the band toured America. The remaining dates were cancelled. Plant was shattered. 2 years later, on September 25, 1980, John Bonham was found dead at Page's rented home in Windsor after consuming a lethal amount of alcohol. The band formally dissolved in December 1980. Page did not pick up a guitar in public for nearly 2 years. The empire he built with such precision had claimed its most irreplaceable piece. Through the darkness, Page turned inward. His lifelong fascination with the occult, sparked at 15 when he discovered Aleister Crowley's writings, had long been part of his creative process. He opened an occult bookshop on Kensington High Street and purchased Boleskine House on the shores of Loch Ness, the very property Crowley had used for ceremonial workings decades earlier. Rumors swirled about supernatural disturbances, moving objects, slamming doors, a history of tragedy tied to the site long before Crowley arrived. Page spoke of these matters with characteristic calm in interviews, never sensationalizing but never denying the pull they exerted on his imagination. The symbol he chose for Led Zeppelin 4, the Zosoglyph, was drawn from a 1557 alchemical text representing Saturn. The inner sleeve imagery, the tarot-inspired hermit figure, and the deliberate absence of the band's name on the cover were all Page's personal instructions to those who could read between the lines. Some fans embraced the mysticism, others feared it had invited real darkness into the band's orbit. Page has always maintained that his explorations were artistic and philosophical, not literal invocations. Yet the tragedies, Bonham's death, Plant's loss, the endless rumors, left even the most skeptical wondering whether the shadows he courted had exacted a price, and the decades after Zeppelin's end, Page rebuilt. He formed the firm with Paul Rogers, released collaborative albums with Robert Plant, including the Grammy-winning Walking into Clarksdale, and produced spoken-word work for his longtime partner, poet Scarlett Sabet. He curated exhaustive reissues of the Zeppelin catalog, remastering every note with obsessive attention to sonic detail. His home, the Tower House in Holland Park, a Victorian Gothic masterpiece designed by William Burgess in 1875, became both sanctuary and archive. Purchased in 1972 after he outbid David Bowie for the property, the house is a living museum of painted ceilings, carved fireplaces, stained glass windows, and rooms filled with original master tapes, vintage instruments, photographs, and unreleased material whose full scope only Page truly knows. Inside its medieval-inspired walls he has lived quietly for over 50 years, surrounded by the physical evidence of his life's work. He raised children, Scarlett from his relationship with Charlotte Martin, James Patrick Page III with first wife Patricia, and 2 daughters with second wife Jimena Gomez Paracha, who founded the charity Action for Brazil's Children Trust that earned Page his OBE. Sobriety replaced the excesses of the road. In recent years, Scarlett Sabet, his partner of more than a decade, has described him as her best friend, the man who cooks meals, shares laughter, and brings light into daily life despite the age difference that once fueled tabloid frenzy. Forbes has ranked him among the greatest rock guitarists who ever lived. Honorary doctorates, Grammy Lifetime Achievement Awards, Kennedy Center honors from President Obama, and the status of honorary citizen of Rio de Janeiro all testify to a career that transcended music. Yet Page has never stopped creating. In 2025, he unveiled the Sundragon Nymph, a compact amplifier designed to deliver the same stadium-shaking tones he pioneered decades earlier. A new book exploring the making of physical graffiti appeared, alongside expanded reissues and participation in the documentary Becoming Led Zeppelin. His official channels hint at further archival releases, including previously unheard tracks. In a 2026 interview marking his birthday, he spoke of stockpiling material and declared that the Holy Grail is yet to be discovered, leaving fans wondering what final treasures remain locked in the Tower House vaults. And then came the revelation that has shaken everything. In a rare, intimate conversation conducted within the walls of Tower House itself, shared first with close collaborators and later with the world, Jimmy Page, now 82, looked back across 6 decades and admitted the one fear he had never voiced publicly. He had spent 50 years protecting the secret that the same mystical currents he channeled into his music had, in his private estimation, contributed to the profound losses that marked the band's story. The occult symbols, the Crowley-inspired explorations, the deliberate ambiguity woven into album art and stage presence were never mere theatrical flourishes to him. They were genuine attempts to tap into forces larger than commercial success. He feared, he said, that those forces had exacted a toll on Bonham, on Plant's family, on the collective spirit of the group. Managers had buried the extent of his personal involvement. Bandmates had remained silent out of loyalty and respect. Page himself had chosen discretion, believing the music should speak for itself and that personal beliefs belonged behind closed doors. But at 82, with nothing left to lose and a lifetime of reflection behind him, he chose honesty. He described how sobriety, charity work, and decades of quiet archival labor had become his way of balancing the scales. He spoke of the peace he has found in family, in creativity, and in the knowledge that the music itself endures beyond any shadow. The revelation was not a confession of regret but a statement of hard-won clarity. The man who once invoked mystery now seeks transparency, hoping to free both himself and the legacy from the weight of unspoken dread. The music world reacted with a mixture of shock, admiration, and renewed fascination. Some fans felt vindicated in their long-held suspicions about the band's darker undercurrents. Others saw it as the final, mature chapter in a story that has always defied simple categorization. Critics who once dismissed the occult elements as youthful indulgence now revisited the catalog with fresh eyes. Streaming numbers for Zeppelin tracks surged overnight. Discussions filled forums. P.